Alright guys, I'm going to explain why YouTube is one of the best ways to learn the spoken language, right? And it mainly has to do with so much access to unscripted content. So, Twitch and YouTube, I'll put them in the same category, but especially with Twitch, people live stream these days, do gaming videos, do gaming live streams, and a lot of the languages you want to learn, like Spanish, French, YouTube, they have like a bunch of live streams and a bunch of, content creators that are offering and making content that's unscripted. And this is very important because if you want to master at least how people speak on the streets in real life, then it's going to really teach you how to speak like a native. And that's what's very important, because even if you read a novel in a language, or even if you consume like anime, for example, that's not really how people speak, right? People don't really speak like that, especially for the higher level animes that are really difficult. Like, no one speaks like that, right? If you want to be able to speak on the same level as like a native speaker on the streets, you're gonna have to learn how they talk. And typically live streams, YouTube content is perfect for this. And that's why I think that, like, if you want to really master spoken French or spoken language of a language, like, the spoken version of the language, the YouTube content is actually king. And here's the thing, guys. Depending on what language you want to learn, let's say you have no interest in mastering or at least learning how to read a book in a language. Like for me, like, I don't know if I really want to learn how to read French literature, even though like that's, so, but here's the thing, you can still achieve like a really high level in a language even if you don't read a book. And that's just because there's a lot of advanced spoken content on YouTube. So what I mean, well, you can find content, especially with French and like Spanish or like, English. There's people that make podcasts where they talk about dense topics. Like there's a lot of dense podcasts and content where they invite guests to talk about sophisticated topics and to talk about, life in general. And typically when you listen to podcasts that require that have multiple speakers or like two people speaking, typically they use more dense vocabulary. They use more formal vocabulary, right? So you can actually still learn how to speak smart and speak like a very intellectual person without ever reading a book. Because you can listen to how an intellectual person, you can listen to how someone who's intellectual, right? It's like the way they speak, because sometimes even in English, at least with me, I don't really read books, guys. I don't read books in English just because I'm not interested, but I'm still like a native speaker of English. Do you guys understand? And you can still learn how to articulate yourself in a language in a very sophisticated manner, especially if you listen to people like, smart people speak through, watching interviews, watching podcasts, basically talk shows. Basically, if you consume a lot of talk shows, that'll give you a good grasp of advanced spoken content. So it's still advanced, so it's still above conversational language because it's more formal, it's more, they use more abstract vocabulary because they're talking about sophisticated topics, but it's still within the realms of conversation, right? And they don't use words that they use in literature, because some of the words used in like, French literature or like Japanese light novels, those words never get used in real life. Never. They're literary words. They're words that are only meant to be alive inside literature, right? Which are not spoken even under academic text. Like even if you read like an academic essay, this literary word in the anime is never going to be used in an academic research paper, right? In Japanese. It's never. So there's just certain words in literature that are only going to be used in literature. So by targeting advanced spoken content on YouTube through dense podcast discussions and interviews, you can access advanced spoken language and advanced vocabulary, but in the context of casual conversation, so that you can still learn how to speak like a smart person. Do you guys understand? Because with me with Japanese, like my Japanese is like, crazy high with vocabulary, but I don't even know how to use like a quarter of it. And the reason why I don't know how to use a quarter of my vocabulary is because I don't know how a smart native speaker uses these uses all these words. You know what I mean? And a lot of these words that I know are typically useless, even if I want to sound smart. Like if I wanted to sound smart, like there's a certain way of phrasing things to sound smart and educated, even in Japanese. And I might know all the words, but because I haven't had exposure to listening to smart people speak, I might not know how to use the words I already know in a sophisticated manner, right? In Japanese. I could sound very smart in Japanese and very sophisticated because I know all the words. Like I have the foundation there, but I just didn't know how to activate it, right? And the only way of doing that is by basically watching advanced spoken content. So the reason why I say advanced spoken content is because it's like, it's still above conversation. Like if you listen to like, you know, Inox Dog's live streams, or if you listen to like, you know, casual gaming live streams, they use very like, you know, casual language and slang. But if you at least consume like very sophisticated formal podcasts, they use a more elevated version of the language, a more elevated register of the language, right? They use more formal sentence structures. They speak more sophisticated, right? They don't use the conversational English. Like you can even confirm this in English. If you listen to a lot of smart people speak, like if you just listen to Jordan Peterson and you basically watch all of Jordan Peterson's interviews, right, on YouTube, it's on YouTube, right? If you're someone that wants to learn English and improve their English, that's a great way to do it. Just watch all of Jordan Peterson's lectures and interviews and podcasts that he's been on, and just observe the way he uses English. Because then with that, you can actually learn how to sound smart, but without being a tryhard and incorporating all these literary Shakespeare words that are never going to be used in conversation. Because there's a difference between sounding corny and sounding smart. Because I know all these light novel words, I know all these anime words, so I could just like bust out all these anime words to like sound smart, but it's just gonna make me sound corny. Because it's not even how an educated Japanese person speaks. An educated native speaker of Japanese won't ever use this type of word, but they'll phrase certain things in this way using these more formal words. So that's just one thing you guys have to keep in mind, that is, you know, even if you decided to completely be illiterate in the language and never read and never pick up a single book, you can still learn how to speak at a very high level, it's a very sophisticated level, as long as you consume advanced spoken content on YouTube, which is why I think that YouTube is king for colloquial content. It's king. Because it still allows you to it allows you to avoid literary language, like all the useless words you pretty much learn in literature. It's not really useless words, because like if you really like literature and anime, then it's worth learning those words just for the purpose of understanding those types of animes. But if you're trying to sound like an educated native speaker that is a professor, or like someone that's educated, then you're gonna have to, you know, you can do that with just YouTube spoken content. So that's the thing. So that's the thing about the nuances of language, is you can still achieve a very high level of fluency even with just spoken content, because there's a lot of advanced spoken content on YouTube, like dense discussions, dense podcasts that talk about, you know, sophisticated topics. Like you don't necessarily need to go to literature to learn how to speak smart, right? Because a lot of the words in literature are not going to be used when you speak, and you don't even know how to phrase it. So I'm an example of this. Like, you know, I know like a lot of words, you know, and I can read like high level literary novels, but I may still not know how to phrase certain things as an educated native speaker of Japanese. And of course I have the vocabulary, so I'm ready, but I just have to basically get more exposure to smart people, right? Or basically sophisticated Japanese speakers. So for me, like I like to listen to Daigo-san. Daigo-san, he speaks a very sophisticated form of Japanese because he's very educated. He knows a lot of words. So all the advanced words he uses, I already know because I read. But at least if I watch his content, I'll be able to learn how to express myself as an educated native speaker in Japanese. So that's the thing, guys. You can completely avoid reading, and you can still achieve a pretty high level of fluency with YouTube. So that's the thing about YouTube, and we did not have access to this before YouTube, and that's why YouTube, I think, changes the game when it comes to learning languages.